Hi, my name is Sabine Engel. I am an employee at the University of Minnesota. I work in the Institute on the Environment, and I am the Director for International Energy Partnerships there.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Ritchie, and welcome to Global Cafe. Every week I get to interview and have conversations with amazing people from around the planet who care about the globe and what's happening on every part of the world. Today, I have the great pleasure of having a good friend and an amazing leader at our University of Minnesota, the head of international partnerships at the Institute on the Environment, Sabine Engel, who I know because she has been connecting Minnesota's towns and communities with towns and communities in Europe, especially in her home country of Germany, who all care about the environment, about where we're going and what kind of planet we're going to leave our children. Thank you, Sabine, and welcome to the Global Cafe.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm super excited. This is the first, so let's go at it.
Great. Well, I just thought our watchers, our viewers should know, how did you get from all the routes to this very special job and this very special leadership position you now have in Minnesota?
I think the short answer to that is curiosity, talking with people, and since we are in the state of Garrison Keillor, I am an English major. So having a liberal arts background is a really good idea. You can do everything, anything. But of course, that's only the start of the story. I got to this because, as you can tell, and your listeners and viewers can tell, I'm German. And I started working at the University of Minnesota at the Center for German and European Studies, which is the German government co-funded center to enhance cooperation between the United States and Germany and European countries. And I led that for 7 years, and it allowed me to do amazing things. And in 2010, then Lieutenant Governor Pretner Solon said, Sabine, you've been doing amazing things by bringing a German healthcare perspective to Minnesota and taking delegations of Minnesota leaders to Germany to learn about universal healthcare systems. Could you do something similar for renewable energy? Because we really need it. And that's how this started. And that's how I eventually moved from the College of Liberal Arts, where the Center for German and European Studies is located, to the Institute on the Environment. And it's been phenomenal.
Well, I know from knowing many of the people in the small towns and communities you've been working, just how much it's not only given them ideas, but it's inspired them to keep going sometimes when it gets rough. You've seen a lot in your career and you've done a lot of things, but this must be one of the more inspiring opportunities to put people together at that grassroots level, small town to small town, here in your new home and back home in Germany.
It's really true. And this is such a rewarding project to be involved in, because it allows me to get to know lots of people across the state. So, as you're seeing behind me, there is a banner that says Climate Smart Municipalities. This is a phenomenal program. It puts together 2 countries, 6 communities, 6 cities in 2 countries. One is, of course, Minnesota, and the other is Germany. And the idea is to figure out what can happen in terms of climate action, municipally driven climate action that is beneficial for the local economy, that is good for the climate, that brings people together, and that really gets us to where we need to go, which is we all need to pull together in the same direction. So this program is supported with funding from the German government and co-funding from Minnesotans, including from the state of Minnesota and our private sector partners. It's really the collaborative project you can dream of. And what we've been doing for the past 4 years is we've done lots of different things in the different cities that are involved. And I would love to share with you which cities these are, and you in your mind look at your mental map of Minnesota, and then you tell me what this means. Ready?
Yes.
Okay, so first city, Warren, Minnesota. If you don't
Long
quite
ways
know,
from here. Long ways from here.
indeed. 1,500 people in the far northwestern corner of the state. Very ag intensive. Fun community. Duluth, Minnesota.
Ah, the big city at the edge of the world's largest lake. Fantastic.
Fabulous. And a great energy team there. Elk River, Minnesota.
Oh, nearer to our Twin Cities, but outside really the metro. It's a new community that's very thoughtful about energy. I know that part.
Yes, and the latest news is they're going to be 100% renewable energy in 2 years, renewable electricity in
Wow.
2 years, because they changed their electricity provider. So big story there. Next city, Morris, Minnesota.
So, college town, early on leaders in biomass, in organic farming, but it's also a community out on the prairie with a deep history. So it's I think, an unusual place. And my godson went to school there in biology and graduated. So I've been there many different times.
And for us at the University of Minnesota, it is our sustainability campus. They are amazing because they work together with the city of Morris. They work together with the West Central Research and Outreach Center there and with the USDA ag station there. Really phenomenal place to do renewable energy and to try out whether we can really get to powering most of our lives through renewable energy other than fossil fuels.
And do I
Next,
remember right, their city council has been very involved, their city officials?
that is correct. The city council, through our exchange with Germany, pulled together with all kinds of stakeholders in the county, in Stevens County. And last January, no, 2019 in January, they passed their climate strategy. And it is a phenomenal undertaking. As soon as they passed it, people from the Twin Cities area called them and said, Blaine Hill is the city manager there. Blaine, how did you do this? How are you going to reduce your waste by 2030 and not do any landfilling anymore? Because that's one of the goals. How are you going to engage the community, all of the stakeholders? How are you going to push your community forward? What are you going to do with your fleet? Is it really going to be electric, including all of the police cars? Really phenomenal story there. But we still have 2 more cities left in our group.
Oh boy.
So let's go to the next one, Rochester, Minnesota.
Well, a medium-sized city, Mayo, of course, also the home of IBM, but it also is the dynamic part of an entire region, a very ag and very wind, a very, it's interesting in all kinds of ways, but it's going to be a bigger city someday, so they have some challenges.
They do have some challenges, and it's also a great opportunity because they propose to grow, because of the medical destination, DMC, Destination Medical Center project, and they will need to figure out how to do this in a way that is sustainable. So it's a great opportunity. When you're growing, you are going to put in a lot of new infrastructure. And if you think in terms of sustainability, you can really shape what your future as a community is going to look like. And I'm extremely grateful for the city of Rochester to be part of this exchange because the city leadership, Mayor Norton, she really is driving into that direction. And she has been involved in this exchange with Germany on climate smart municipalities since its start in 2016, when she was still a member of the state legislature. So I'm super proud of what they are doing there.
Well, and they have 1 million or 1.2 million visitors from around the world coming for treatment at Mayo. So there's also people who can see that smaller cities out on the prairie can really, really take a leadership position like you're describing.
And you know
what's that last city?
The last city, and right now we just talked about the cities that are kind of out outside the metro region that are more ag focused, that are smaller. And now we're going to move into the metro region, and we're going to go to White Bear Lake. White Bear Lake is the newest member in our group, and White Bear Lake is going to do amazing things because they are thinking already in a sustainability fashion, and they have been for quite some years. Because remember the biggest story about White Bear Lake in 2011?
That the lake that was draining away or something
Oh my gosh,
was
the lake
going on.
disappeared.
It
5
disappeared.
feet.
That's what it was. Oh my God.
The water level dropped 5 feet. And, you know, even with a big lake like White Bear Lake, it's noticeable.
And so
So
what will they do, and how will they be part, and how does their leadership help drive the rest of us forward?
So they have been involved in, they're really forward leaning, and that again has to do with the leadership at the city. Mayor Jo Emerson, she is known for being this collaborative genius, and she is curious about everything. And you know, being challenged with a climate crisis, like your lake disappearing, your water disappearing, and you're having to think about water. They really have been thinking about stuff much earlier than others and more consistently than others. So what they've been doing is they look for opportunities. A couple of years ago, they started working with Xcel Energy to figure out, does it make sense for our fleet, our city fleet, to be electrified? How are we even using our vehicles? Which vehicles would it be a good idea to have as electric vehicles rather than as fossil fuel burning vehicles? Could we use that data and then figure out how to replace our vehicles in a way that makes sense, that looks at how people are using it and what the purpose is, and then overall reduce the greenhouse gas emissions of our fleet? Things like that. Energy efficiency. Because of our exchange with Germany, they're thinking much harder than they did before about how to use lighting in the city. Is there a way to use lighting so that we only turn the lights on when it's actually needed? So the light responds to movement, sensors, things like that. It may not be a lot that it changes the energy footprint, but cumulatively, it really adds up. So this is something that all of us need to just think about constantly. Every little change matters, because if everybody does it, when everybody does it, it really adds up fast.
Right, and to me, that's the thing about exchanges and seeing what other people are doing, is that when you have leaders who then pick up on that, then others can follow because they know somebody else has done it. There is something really special about it. And you know, at Global Minnesota, one of the things we do is each year we host 100, sometimes as many as 500 visitors from other countries, from other places. And we're always encouraging Minnesotans to go anytime they can for just this reason. But you've been doing this in a really organized way, first in healthcare and medicine, then in energy, in this case climate, but also just sustainability in general. Where do you see these leaders and these communities going? You mentioned White Bear Lake is your most recent. It's a wonderful and older community. Used to have train connections down into St. Paul. It has a kind of a rich, deep history and a modern crisis with the lake. Where do you see the next wave of your climate smart municipalities and that partnership and that exchange relationship with those communities in Germany?
Looking at this poster behind me, the banner behind me, it really is about everybody getting involved. As you say, Global Minnesota is very much about looking outside and outside Minnesota, looking for good ideas. Who's doing what? That's really interesting. And that is what we're doing. And what our German partners are showing us is the more consistently we involve everybody in the community, from the kindergarten kids up to the businesses, to the political leadership, the faster a community can change, the more equitable it is, the more inclusive it is, and the more we can really do what we need to do as, you know, people who live in a highly industrialized, very resource intensive society. We really need to figure out not only how do we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but how do we stop wasting so much?
Yeah, I was very interested that one of the things that the cities were asking was, how will you reduce that landfill? I mean, that's, you know, that's one of those kind of key elements. The issue of food waste has become very big, very important. And I think even with this pandemic and the sort of, you know, craziness of the current moment, people who've been working on sustainability like yourself and like Mayor Norton and the others, it seems like there's a momentum that will keep this train running forward as we work our way through, I guess, a new way of considering how we connect. Now it's going to be more complicated and probably some period of time before people feel comfortable traveling or, you know, being in a kind of a group. But are you imagining some virtual ways where you could take those really great presenters in Germany and those city people here, municipalities, and hooking them up virtually? Or are you thinking of some other ways to kind of maybe do reunions? You mentioned Mayor Norton has been going since the beginning, but what are you thinking about in this little COVID-19 pandemic period, how to keep the ball going?
Well, you know, two things about this. This is not the first fundamental crisis that we have gone through. What is different is that everybody is hit at the same time. There has been destruction before. We always figured out a way to dealing with it. And this one is not going to be any different. So I have no fear about this. What I'm hoping for is that we think of this in terms of resilience. The crisis that we're experiencing right now has to do with, it's like a natural disaster. The difference to the normal natural disaster is it happens all over the world at the same time. And there's really no escaping. But it really pushes us to think about resiliency in a much more comprehensive fashion. We need to think about resilient cities. We need to think about resilient structures. We need to think about, you know, maybe doing things in a little bit more decentralized way so that we are not taken out all at the same time. Short term, we have been actually communicating with our program partners, both in Minnesota, across Minnesota, and also with Germany since April. We had a virtual retreat. We had a virtual, get this, a virtual Camp Ripley retreat.
Whoa. Oh my goodness gracious.
Every year, this was supposed to be the third year, we gather as the Minnesota program partners on this project at Camp Ripley to share what's going on, to learn something new, and then to be inspired and continue doing what we're doing before we meet again in person. We couldn't do this. We decided we're going to do this virtually. We decided we're going to bring in speakers from Germany and make this, well, make lemonade out of lemons. You know, add something and not just bemoan that we couldn't do what we originally had been planning to do. So that you can think of it as a crisis, or you can think of it as an opportunity. Think of it as an opportunity. You're going to see different things. And I can tell you, everybody loved it. They said at the end, oh my gosh, this was so productive. And I didn't have to travel so far.
Yes.
Did anybody calculate all of the avoided carbon? No, we didn't. We're not into math that much. But so the point being is we can do a lot more things than we think in ways that don't require us to be physically in the same room. It requires more preparation. That's correct. And it just requires us to understand that this type of virtual format, it's tiring. It's not like sitting exactly around the table with some people, because when we're sitting around with each other in the same room, we goof off. We look at other things. We build in relaxation that you don't have when you look at somebody on the screen or follow a presentation on the screen the way we are doing this now. So I think it's a great opportunity. And I want to quote one of our participants, Senator Dave Sengen from Rochester, who's been part of this project too, and has been a phenomenal partner and supporter. He said, in 5 minutes into our first Zoom meeting, Camp Ripley virtual retreat, he said, people, this is amazing. This is the future.
Oh, that's great. Good for him. Good for you. Well, so who are the partners in Minnesota? I know you were working with the, Institute and Jefferson, but who are these other Minnesotans who've been on this journey with you?
So what, in terms of impact, the University of Minnesota's Institute on Environment, we are really about leadership on environmental issues and about impact. How do we create impact? How do we change the speed of things? Not the direction, because that's what people decide on, but how do we speed the change of things? And in order to really create impact, we need to talk to a lot more people. So in our project, we pulled together what I always call this group of stakeholders, and they make up this vertical decision-making column. So at the top, there are the communities, the cities. What do they want to do? Who are their partners? They need to be partnered with business. They need to be partnered with the people they trust. Then we need to have the state involved. Who in the state? Definitely the departments that are all about sustainability and how we do things. So Department of Ag, we're in the rural areas of Minnesota. Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, Environmental Quality Board, Department of Commerce, and the Department of Administration. Now, a lot of people don't know what the Department of Administration does, but they are in charge of the state's Office of Enterprise Sustainability that's charged to show by example, how to do things much more energy efficiently and in a sustainable fashion. So those 5 state agencies are involved. And then we also have partnerships with some private sector partners, Evergreen Energy, and with the NGOs, the Great Plains Institute, the Center for Energy and Environment. And it is really, really important to have all of these people learn together and for politics to be there. So we also include politicians from the 2 parties. We need everybody, because to get this, you can't see this on my banner, but our slogan is together we are smarter, not together we are stronger. That's not who's going to win. People who are smarter, they're going to win the race. We want to win this race. We want to show how to live sustainably, how to do this in Minnesota, how to bring everybody along, and probably inspire others.
Sabine, this has been an amazing conversation that I think is going to give our viewers so many questions that they'll want to come back and ask you, and they want to think about the future. It's that leadership you were describing. I hope you'll come back to the Global Cafe soon and we can pick this up again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Very fun.
Great. Bye now.
Bye-bye.